Alright guys, we are going to go through our blood basics notes. This is just kind of talking about what our blood is, some facts about it, and then going through the different blood types. So you should have a copy of your notes, and if you do, we'll be ready to begin. So what makes up our blood? The first thing is red blood cells. These are called erythrocytes. They are the most abundant cells in our blood. They're produced in the bone marrow, and then they contain a protein called hemoglobin that carries oxygen to all our other cells. The next type is red blood cells, which is leukocytes. And these are part of the immune system. They're larger than red blood cells, and they destroy infectious agents called pathogens. So when you get sick, your body produces more white blood cells to attack those pathogens and help you feel better. The next part is plasma, and this is the yellowish liquid portion of blood that contains electrolytes, nutrients, and vitamins, hormones, clotting factors, and proteins such as antibodies to help fight infection as well. So plasma is really important. Then the last thing is platelets, which are thrombocytes. And these are the clotting factors that are carried in the plasma. They clot together in a process called coagulation to seal a wound and prevent the loss of blood. So that's when you get like a scab. These platelets are all like piling together and forming that clot. So then when it dries, it protects that wound. Some different blood facts. The average adult has about 5 liters of blood inside their body, which make up about 7 to 8% of your body weight. Blood is considered a living tissue that carries oxygen and nutrients to all part of the body and carries carbon dioxide and other waste products back to the lungs, kidneys, and liver for disposal. Blood also helps us fight against infection. It helps heal wounds through those platelets so that we can stay healthy and functioning. So then there are about 1 billion red blood cells in 2 or 3 drops of blood. And then for every 600 red blood cells, there are about 40 platelets, which are those clotting factors. And then there's 1 white cell. Okay, so there's a lot more red blood cells, but again, when we get sick or get an infection, our body goes into like overdrive and starts making a lot of white blood cells so that we can fight that infection. Now, with the genetics of our blood, there's some different things, okay? So not all blood types are the same. If you remember from our 5.1 notes and our guided reading, blood type is considered a trait that has multiple alleles, meaning there's multiple types of blood. So it's established before you're born by specific genes that you inherit from your parents. Then you inherit 1 gene from your mother and 1 from your father, and then it determines what type you have. These genes determine your blood type by causing proteins called agglutinogens, big word, to exist on the surface of all your red blood cells. So then it kind of determines what you have. And we'll look at a picture in a minute. So, as you can see on the picture here, there's the different types of blood, and then you can see those surface proteins. Type A has A proteins, type B has B proteins, and then type AB has both, and then type O doesn't have any of those proteins or any of those agglutinogens. Okay, and then the plasma antibodies you can see at the bottom as well. So there are 3 alleles or genes for blood type. Those are A, B, and O. And then the genotypes, if you look in the box here on the screen by the red star, you can see AA or AO for type A. Then there's BB or BO for type B. There's OO for type O, and then AB for type AB. So there are 6 different genotypes for the main 4 types of blood. Then, these different combinations have different percentages, just like there's different percentages for what eye color you might get, and some are more rare than others. The same happens with blood. So, O blood, you have O positive or O negative, is about 46.1%, like distribution or common. A positive or A negative, which is actually, I have A positive, and there's about 38.8% of people that have that. So that's pretty common if you see that 1 in 3 or 1 in 16. Then B is only about 11.1% of people. And then AB is the most rare blood type, and that's about 3.9% of people. So most people, if you look at the distribution, most people are going to have either O positive or A positive blood. And then it goes to B positive, and then other ones fill in. Now, there is something else that happens with blood, and you have blood transfusions, which are a process in which blood is given to a patient through an IV. And then that blood transfusion helps replace blood that's lost if a person has surgery or if they're seriously injured. It might also be given to a person if their body can't make as much blood as they need. So you have to like get a blood transfusion to help increase the amount of blood they have so their body can function. Now, there are certain ways that you can give or receive blood. You can't just kind of give it willy-nilly. It depends on what type of blood you have. So people with type O blood are considered universal donors because they can give blood to any other blood type. So people that have type O blood are like really popular in hospitals when there's like blood drives because their blood can be used in those emergencies and can be given out to anybody. You don't have to worry about what other type of blood the person has. The type O blood can be given to anybody. Again, because it doesn't have any of those proteins on it, so it gets along with the other blood types. Then type AB blood is considered a universal recipient, which means they can receive any blood type. So they can receive A, B, or O. Again, because of those proteins, AB blood has both A proteins and B proteins. And then because O doesn't have any proteins on it, it can receive that as well. But the unfortunate thing is if you're AB, you can only receive A blood, B blood, or AB blood. And if you're O, you can only receive, or you can only give out to A or B. But if you're O, I believe you can only receive O blood. So it's really hard to get blood if you're type O. And you have a little bit more options if you're type A, B. Then we have what's called this RH plus or RH negative. So RH plus can receive either plus or negative blood. So if they were like A positive, they could either receive A positive or A negative. But if you were A negative and needed blood, you could only receive A negative. So getting into this RH factors, it's actually studied from rhesus monkeys. And because they had certain similarities between rhesus monkeys and humans, they noticed that there was a certain blood protein on these monkeys, and humans had it as well, but they also noticed that some humans didn't have this protein. So the presence of the protein or lack of protein is referred to as the Rh factor, which is short for that rhesus factor. And if your blood does contain the protein, it's considered Rh positive. And if the blood does not contain the protein, it's considered Rh negative. So you can have either A positive, A negative, B positive, B negative, AB positive, AB negative, or O positive or O negative. So that's a total of 8 different possible combinations of blood type. Now, some other really cool things with blood, when we think about how blood can be used in like forensic science or crimes, there's different ways that you can use blood evidence. So there's blood samples, which can then be analyzed to determine the blood type and even the DNA, which can be matched to possible suspects or victims to confirm that it was that person. Um, Blood droplets can be analyzed to give clues on the location of the crime, where it happened, how the victim might have moved, or even the type of weapon that was used based on where the blood droplets were. And then you have blood spatter, which can be analyzed to determine different patterns to give the investigators clues about how the crime might have happened and where. So blood is pretty interesting. We're going to get into it um, a little bit more, just checking some things out. But otherwise, um, these are just some quick notes about blood types and how our blood is helpful and the different ways that it can be used. So once you're done with these, you are good to go.